a lot of people can waste years, decades of their life waiting for this mission, this meaning, this their why to show up when it's just right there. It's just a choice. And what most people lack, I find, is they just don't really have a framework or a way, a methodology to walk through on just trying to sort that out.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh Rephun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My co-host today on Truth Tastes Funny is Mark Reynolds. Mark has lived in some fascinating worlds. He's a decorated Army veteran, an award-winning international speaker, a certified high-performance coach, a CPA, an author, and perhaps most importantly for this conversation, he's a guy who once wanted to do comedy. And today, as owner of Reynolds Coaching, Mark works with high achievers who have done the thought work. They've read the books, they've built the habit trackers, and still find themselves stalling out. And his contention is that when we tend to bounce between two answers, I need to change how I think and just tell me what to do. But what if neither one goes deep enough? Because somewhere between mindset and action is the story we're telling ourselves about who we are, what we want, what's actually possible. And Mark and I discovered pretty quickly that we have some overlapping and occasionally weird ideas about truth, comedy, performance, identity, and why knowing exactly what to do doesn't necessarily mean you'll do it. So this isn't going to be an interview about 5 habits for high performance. We're going to talk about what actually has to change before change sticks. So Mark Reynolds, welcome as my co-host today on Truth Tastes Funny.
Hey, all right, Hersh, thanks so much for having me. I can't wait for us to dig into this. I've been looking forward to this conversation for some time now, so I'm glad we were
Like
able to get it going.
Likewise, so have I. We both had an attraction to comedy, and somehow both ended up doing work that is fundamentally about helping people see themselves differently, which is really interesting to me. And I'm beginning to wonder whether those two things are, related or unrelated.
Yeah, well, one of the things that stands out to me with anybody that's interested in comedy as I explore those, I had an amazing opportunity actually. I don't even know if I shared this with you before, but I had a chance to interview Kramer from Seinfeld when
Oh
I was up
wow,
in
Michael
Boston.
Richards.
Yeah, up at MIT. And I had just read his autobiography. And one of the things that was interesting that we talked about, in addition to being, comics and doing some acting, is he actually served in the army,
Oh wow.
just like I did. And he was an army medic, which, that was my background as well. And one of the things that was really interesting about his time in the army, if was that he served in a theater troupe there. And he attributes a large portion of his success in comedy to a number of things. Obviously, he grew up in California and had access and schooled in the arts, but he attributes a lot of his success actually to his army training and the discipline
Oh.
around that. But one of the things I thought was just amazing was that he played a colonel and he became like a method actor. So the whole time he was traveling in Europe, he made people act and treat him like he was a colonel, but he wasn't a colonel, man. He was a junior enlisted man at the time. So it was like really amazing. And the reason why I was bringing that up is that there's a lot of fun in comedy and in coaching and in consulting and acting. And this idea, like you get to assume different roles. You get to
Yeah.
be somebody. I like to like try on different versions of yourself. And for me growing up, that was super liberating because through acting, I could be anybody. And
Yeah.
that could be me. It wasn't like imposter syndrome. I was like, that's the gig. That's the gig,
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
become what
Yeah.
you need to be. And so I kind of took that idea into all areas of my life. And then ultimately for my clients, I'm like, hey, what are we trying to do here? Who do you want to be? And I use a lot of my time in my coaching sessions giving clients, the stage, so to speak, to try on that role, that persona of who do you want to be in the future? What roles would you like to, I would say, like, if you were an actor, like, hey, who would you like to be typecast as? What's the gigs you're looking for? Because I know you've been doing these other things, but hey, if you want to get completely out of X, like, you don't want to be seen as a comic and you want to do serious drama now, well, great, you can do that. But you need to practice that. You need a new skill sets. You just got to get new reps. And so, for me, that's a lot of what my coaching is. And, a lot of people don't talk like that because like most of my clients are business executives and small
Yeah.
business owners, they don't think in terms of production value, but I always did. And I know it made me a little different in corporate for sure. Certainly made me different as an internal auditor. There weren't a lot of auditors running around talking about how audits could be fun and entertaining and enlightening. I wasn't there to like, I never wanted it to be a drag, but also like, I want there to be some production value to it. I mean, it should be a show. It's like we should have some fun. And I was like, uh, um, yeah, I just loved all those elements. I always just think that it any actor, comic, business person, but really anybody like this, I the ability to see humor or nuance in everyday activity is the thing that makes a real difference. I mean, like the masters of comedy, like that's what the whole switch
Yeah.
on taking just everyday life and turning it into something amazing. But that's what I would like for all my clients, and I'm sure you would too. Like, how do you just turn what you think is your everyday life into like this amazing experience, this amazing show that you would want to see and you think other people would want to be a part of?
Yeah. I mean that segues into a thought that I had, which was when you called yourself a failed comic, I thought, you know, what if you're not? What if comedy just ended up being inside the work? What does a comedian notice maybe that a conventional coach doesn't notice?
Yeah, the one of the other things I don't know that I've ever shared this with you. I've shared it with a few people personally. I mean, I struggled early on. I remember I've been good at school. I'm a pretty smart guy, and not to be like sound like that, but I mean, school came pretty easy to me. I was in the gifted program and had a lot of access to some early research, and I took a lot of pride in that part of being smart, and I really enjoyed academics. I was always intrigued by that. There was also this light side, this comic side, this production side, and for me, they were intertwined with each other. I didn't see them as separate. But I had a teacher in fourth grade pull me aside, and she said, "You can be smart or you can be funny, but you can't be both, and you better pick."
Yeah.
Right? And she said one pays better than the other. And so I kind of really damped down the comic really early on. And it was funny because I would go through elements of and periods of life where I would say the comic would slip out. Like
Yeah.
I would just see it and people noticed that. I was at a dinner conference and someone said to me, they're like, "You're really funny when people aren't paying attention." It's like I was like, "Oh." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you." And I was like, "Oh, I said, that's who I am." I said, "But I'm still paid to play a role, right? There's still an actor part. The
Yeah.
comedy is me. I'm searching for joy. I'm trying to bring more joy and laughter into my life and enjoy the unique situations. But, a lot of people don't hire a military officer or expect him to be funny. They're like, "Oh, war is really serious." And I was like, "Oh, well, there's a lot of laughter and joy and comedy that's needed to break up that stress.
Well,
You don't
there are a lot of great actors who started in the military. Um, Arlie Ermy from Full Metal Jacket. There are a lot of people that Um, Dennis Farina started in law enforcement, was a cop in Chicago, and then became a largely, comedic actor, brilliant actor.
Mhm.
And they started in the harshest reality, right? And I think that acting or playing roles is about behavior, and I use that word because if we're going to behave appropriately in a certain room, we're going to adopt a certain posture, we're going to take a certain attitude, we're going to have reverence if it's called for. That's all behavior. In a way, that's all acting. Because
Mhm.
when we're out on the softball field or on a stand-up comedy stage, the rules are different. And we're adhering to those rules. Now, there are people that can't follow any kind of rules, but for the most part, especially the people you work with, they're they're struggling with rules and behavior and how they treat themselves and how they treat others. Like you said, essentially the first question you ask every client is, "What do you actually want?"
Yeah,
Right?
for
How
sure.
many high achievers actually know what they want?
Yeah, most people don't really have a very strong or clear answer the first time you ask them that. It's really more of the list of what I say they don't want. That's real clear. It most really by the time people hit mid-career where I'm at, because they got launched pretty early on in life, early adult on some path, and there was a pretty clear path for them on a corporate structure and what they thought their personal life would look like. It's rise the corporate ladder, get promoted, get a good job, get in the best company. It may have started earlier with like getting into the right schools, getting into the right residencies, the right programs. There's a pedigree to it, all of it, and getting married, having kids, living in the right neighborhoods. But somewhere along the line, you just get to like, well, wait a minute. Like, I don't know. Is this it? Because a lot of people haven't asked if this is what I want. And even if it was, I still always go back to, well, like, what do you want now? I've
Yes,
been
yeah.
right? Because I've been playing with this analogy in my head of like the map, the treasure map. If you were like, I want the treasure in life, and I would say like, oh, well, what's the map? In the military, we would say, what's the mission?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? Like, what are we trying to do here? And you say, well, like, okay, well, that's super important. If like you were going to go find a treasure, you would definitely need to know where X marks the spot, right? You'd have to
Yes,
be like,
yeah.
wait, and what is it that we'd actually look for, right? It's like a lot of people can't even define like if they would have it. Like you could hand it to them, and if they don't know that that's the treasure they're looking for, they then you go
Well,
like,
you hit on something really interesting, which is, and I don't remember the exact words you used, but it was a few moments ago, and you said that I mean, if somebody's worried about what the mission is, the question also is whose mission? Like,
right, yeah,
are we following the mission of the corporation or the entity that we work for or the country that we're serving or the department that we work for? What Whose mission is it? And I think where a lot of us struggle is when we're free to choose our own mission.
hmm
And that may not happen early in our careers. It may happen mid-career. We have a little more choice. Sometimes launching our like I had someone say to me recently, well, I'm not yet at that place where I get to choose my own path. And their reasons for that were external, pressures. And I was like, well, sometimes the external pressure is so great, you have to choose your own path because the path that you wanted somebody to choose for you isn't even available. And now you have to start getting creative and figure out how are you going to choose your own path? And so, you may come across people who have a hard time distinguishing between I don't know what to do and I know what to do, but I won't allow myself to do it.
yeah. Well, one of the things that I really, really spend a lot of time emphasizing with my clients on this is this in coaching we refer to it as agency, right? And that's if you have high agency, the idea is that the client really believes that they're in control of their own future. That they're, in gaming technology, like played a lot of games growing up with me and my son, and, we call that, main character energy, like not being the NPC, like you're in
Yeah,
control.
yeah.
Like, and so for my business clients, I always say, like, you're the asset, not the expense to be managed. And the reason why I'm saying that is that a lot of people keep waiting around for like, oh, I someday I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. Like it's going to be revealed to them. And I don't
Hmm.
know who said, but I heard a coach say one time, he's like, your destiny doesn't fall out of the sky like a piano and hit you in the head. And then you're like, oh, he said, nor do you step in it like dog poop, right? You don't just like, oh, wait, there's my
Yeah.
destiny. It there is a real unlock. And the thing that unlocked for me was this idea around, a lot of people have put it out like Jocko Willink, but a lot of people before them, even who wrote Success Principles, not Brian Tracy or I forget his name. Great, great coach, great author. But one of his very first book chapters in Success Principles, Jack Canfield said, "You
Yeah,
must take
yeah.
100% responsibility for your results." Super liberating. This idea of like, you don't find your mission in life, you don't find your goal or your purpose. You choose it. It's just a choice.
Hmm.
And so I remember when we were listening, there was a client that was talking some time ago, and she was like, well, I feel like I'm being called by God to do this one thing, and I want to do this other thing. And she feels conflicted. And she was in this group coaching I was in. She's a coach. And so it was kind of like a peer group, and we were all talking to her. And it really struck me that at the end of the day, she's still left with a choice,
Hmm.
right? And both can be very liberating because if she leads into, for example, if you're very faith based and you've got this idea that, well, that you're being called to do something, well, you can still choose that. You say, yes, I'm going to go in faith that I feel called and compelled to do things. That for me has been true for a lot of things. I haven't understood why I felt compelled to pursue certain activities. They didn't make sense at the time for me, but I go like, oh, I believe that's one of the thoughts that I choose is like, oh, if it's put on my heart, then it's there for me. There's a reason I'm being called to do that. There's also a choice where you say like, well, I hear this thing, but I'm also pulled in this other way to go like, well, you choose that too. And either way, it's super empowering in the way I think about it is go like, look, I'm just making a choice. And as soon as you realize you can change your mind at any point, you're never locked in. I mean, we've all
Yeah.
done that, right? We've been super convinced we were going to do one thing. I mean, I like growing up as a kid, before I was going to be a comic, right? I was going to be an astronaut, right? And then
Yeah.
I just like, no, I don't think I actually want to be locked into a capsule and shot into space. I think I'd like to do other things. Right? And so you
Yeah.
go like, but a lot of people can waste years, decades of their life waiting for this mission, this meaning, their why to show up when it's just right there. It's just a choice. And what most people lack, I find, is they just don't really have a framework or a way, a methodology to walk through. I'm just trying to sort that out. Right. So
Yeah.
they right. So you default to the most natural way to do it, which is, well, if I don't know how to do it, I'll just adopt it from somebody else. And then frankly, I mean, that's what I did. I didn't know what I was doing. So I just entered the family business. My family was in the military for generations. I was like, that's what we do. I don't have to think about career. Like, hey, if I'm not doing the acting and comedy thing, I'm going to go into the military,
Yeah.
you know, and,
And then you
and the
might
military.
circle back around and be an astronaut again. By the way, Mark, there's a great bit in there somewhere about, saying to a stand-up audience, I was supposed to be an astronaut. But that was my first choice was to be an astronaut. But at some point, I didn't want to be, confined to a capsule and blasted off into space. You know, I'd rather stand here and try to make you idiots laugh and
Mhm.
you know. Um, but it does lead to an interesting question about um, the physics of of what we're doing with ourselves and the psychology. You know, you had mentioned that you were at the same time you were too soft for physicists and too hard for social scientists.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that dichotomy, and I love the quantum possibility on one side and Newtonian action on the other side, and where does a human actually live? You know, unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, I've always played in these two spaces around what I call the known world, the known acceptance, and uh, creative spaces. And and when I got to college, I was double majoring in physics and in psychology. And that's what I alluded to, So when I would be in
Yeah.
the physics, and they're literally on the opposite sides of campus. And so I would walk into the physics building and I'd be rejected by all the real scientists because they
Yeah.
say, well, they would almost be disgusted with me because they're like, you have such strong math chops and you have a great mind. Like you could be like you could make a real contribution. You could be a physicist. And I was like, yeah, but I don't love it the way you do. Like, and I knew that early on. I mean, there were parts of physics that I loved, but where I could tell they had the passion and they would sit and, and work the problems and get into the higher math. I was more interested in what was becoming at the field, like the modern physics, the quantum areas. And this was all about
Hmm.
possibilities, things we couldn't prove yet, about infinite possibilities. And then I would leave and I'd go over to the social sciences and I would get the same thing. I'd be rejected by them. And they'd say, you're too hard. You're too analytical. You rely too much on what we can prove and what we can know and what we can see. And that's not how the mind works. And Gestalt psychology was really popular at the time. And modern, like what we know now as positive psychology, was just starting to be born around this idea. But I didn't like the idea of like just thinking about things forever and never knowing and not having a proof. So, I did like early on with Skinner and the behavioralists where it's like I knew like, hey, if I do this, then this will happen, actions and results. But so I just kept walking the line and I thought I never felt like I was wrong. That always felt right for me that the truth was somewhere in between. Right?
Yeah.
This really became what we talk now about the foundation of my business, right? I became a high performance coach and I do mindset coaching. And you go like, well, what is that about? And I said, well, because I found that when I was in either camp, the solution felt incomplete. There were people that were always just talking about manifestation. And if I just believe it long enough that what I want in the world will happen. And then there was a whole group of people that were just give me the hack, right? Just knowledge
Hmm.
base. And this is what we talked to you before. There's a lot of people that know what to do and they're just not doing it. Well, that's not a knowledge problem anymore. You don't need a hack. You already know how to do that. There's plenty of people that have read plenty of time management books, but their calendars and their lives still are stressed and they're still having trouble getting their work done and they're still struggling to get home on time, right? Like, well, those are different issues. It's not like you don't know how to fill out a calendar or say no to a calendar or to like,
Yeah.
especially my clients, like they're super high performers in so many other areas of their life. So like it's not like remedial stuff. It's not like Psych 101 or time
Yeah.
management
Yeah.
101. Like they're beyond that. What's happened in fact is they've been so successful that's really what we were talking about before. It's like if you were an actor and like you've just had a lot of success in these roles. And now I'm like, well, right, but if you want to do this other thing, you got to become a new person. That takes an
Yeah.
entire different style and that's the mindset piece. And so like we said, that for me started back all the way back in college on like these two worlds around using what psychology tells us about, hey, there are knowns in the world and we can operate. And I don't waste a lot of time, and I don't waste any of my clients time arguing what I call our gravity problems, right? And
Yeah.
so what we mean by that is if something is a problem for you, but it can't be changed, it's not a problem. It's just a reality. It's like if you don't like gravity, there's no amount of manifestation that's going to change that, right? We got to accept
Yeah.
gravity and move on with it. It's a thing, right? Until you get out of space, right? But here, it's a
Yeah.
thing, right? So we're not. I'm not gonna engage with my clients for very much time on like I don't like gravity or I don't like that the sky is blue,
Right.
right? That's a very different conversation than hey, I don't enjoy my current job. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's not a fact. That's a choice. Like, not everybody has your job, type of thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot going on there in terms of looking on our conversation that we're having and saying, okay, so if we look at this balancing act of there's there's the hard science and the soft social science, and being too analytical for one side and not enough of a dreamer for the other side. And but where this leaves us is that the middle is where the action is. And it seems like for you, it's it's been a kind of a journey to the middle, you know, a journey to the middle where it's not what we look for often are absolutes, you know. We look for it's absolute this or it's absolute certainty. Certainty is what causes people to buy. People want certainty. But if you study sales, for example, you know that certainty is often an illusion, right? There isn't any certainty. So so truth is really in the center somewhere. Truth is truth. We talked about this in our previous conversation, where we talk about truth. There's the truth that actually is indisputable, and then there's the story that we tell about the truth, and the story about the truth has some wiggle room. Like, where does coaching, in your view, live between the truth and the stories we tell about the truth?
It's a great question. I was I was thinking through that as you were talking. I think coaching, one of the fundamental areas that coaching offers more than any other is an insight into real-time feedback. I guess it's like you're on stage, you know whether or
Yeah.
not a joke hits or not because the audience
Yeah.
respond, right? and but most people don't have some kind of truthful feedback real time in their lives, right? We've eliminated most of the training modules out of our corporate lives. Most of us, our friends are our friends. Our friends want us to be happy. They don't always want to share with us the parts about us that could use some work, that may be holding us
Right.
back in areas. Same thing, especially with our spouses, especially men not wanting to burden their wives or appear even more vulnerable to their spouse or around what they're struggling with. Certainly if you're an executive or you're the leader, I mean, if you're the CEO, who are you going to share your challenges with? Who's going to give you real feedback? Like, not the board. The board doesn't want to hear about your concerns or your fears or your lack. Right? They're expecting you to lead the organization. Everyone in the
Yeah.
organization is looking to you to run that down. So, anytime you do that, if you're a father, same thing, you're not trying to burden your children with this. So, coaching is by default the place where that's the only role. I mean, that's all I think my role is to give you honest feedback. And ironically for me, it's like when I say I was an auditor, an internal audit, I saw that same role as the internal audit. Right? Coaching is for the person, internal audit is for the corporation. That's internal audit's role, is to provide systemic evaluation on whether or not the organization's achieving its objectives. And if it is, then you go like, hey, great, you're doing exactly what you think you're doing and it's working perfectly. Or you go like, no, it's not really going the way you think it is, and here's why. Like, and then auditor is coaching. I just come back to the very first question I asked you. I said, well, what do you want to do about it? Like, Because sometimes you may say, like, oh, well, I'm actually okay with what I'm getting. That result is fine. I'm going to leave it the way it is. I like the way things are going. All right, well, great. Don't waste any more brain power or energy, like worrying about something you've already decided not to change. But we kind of keep going around with like, oh, coaching and truth. I go, really, what I'm trying to provide people is confidence. I've really been thinking about this, and that's really I go like that's what I provide my clients. That's the results you get from me is confidence that you're getting what you want. And if you
Yeah.
don't, right? And if you don't have confidence that you can have the life like that you can have the life that you want, or that you are getting the results you want, it still just comes down to those three areas we talked about initially. It's do you know what you want? Like what's the mission? What's the goal? Right? You have to have clarity. I mean, there's frameworks and there's like a lot of methodologies to get around that. We kind of talked about those earlier, but I mean that's what gets a lot of people messed up is they just really they don't even know how to win because they've never defined success for themselves as it relates to today, but more importantly, what they would like it to be going forward. Then the second part is if you say, like, okay, I know exactly what I want, then I just go like, well, do you have the skills to do it? Right? Do you have the competency? Do you have the routines and comedy, right? In your personal life, do you have the habits, the schedules, the skills, whatever it is that you need? If you say no, you go, well, that's really great because those are the easiest things to acquire. Right? Google and Claude, ChatGPT, almost anybody can get you skills. And then
Yeah.
if you go yes and yes, the last thing is you just go like, oh, well, who who's the personnel I need? What's the team I need? But really what I'm asking is, are you the type of person or do you have the right people around you that can help do the things that you said needed to be done, the actions to achieve that mission? So that's the
Yeah.
military mindset is like, hey, can the team accomplish the mission? What do we have to do? In your personal coaching, it's the same thing. It's what do I want? And do I have the skills to do it? And then P, which is really where a lot of people are struggling. That's kind of how we started this is they're just not the type of person that would be needed to accomplish that goal, right? There's some level
Mm.
of mindset, um, some uh, some type of competency, but a lot of times it could just be the courage. And I find
Yeah.
that when you have all three of those, you start to feel very, very confident about your ability to achieve your goal. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, Mark, you hit the nail on the head there with the question about confidence. That really it isn't, while you may start the conversation with somebody saying, what is it that you really want? What you're really trying to achieve isn't clarity on their part. And I find that I think we might have talked about that. I find this with my clients as well.
mhm.
They have clarity. They know exactly who they are and what they bring to the world and all of that. And that's obviously probably very true with high performers. But they the audience doesn't necessarily understand what it is that they see, you know? And so by saying to someone, what do you want? What are you actually after? What's the mission? And they kind of start there, but where you lead them, it seems, is to a place of confidence so that they will have the wherewithal to do everything else because they're smart enough to innovate solutions. They're smart. They've been around the block in some way. They've succeeded. They've overcome stuff. It's all the tools are there, but the one thing that maybe is eluding them is the confidence in their mission and their ability to achieve it. I
Yeah,
look at that image in the background of the soldier on the hill with the flag, and and the sun on the horizon, and you're like, yeah, the confidence to know that you could do it. You know,
yeah. And the other thing I think that gets people a little tripped up is this idea like it's like they get it solved, like it's just solved, and now I'm done. But that's not been my experience. And that's not experienced with most of my clients. It's we're dynamically moving through all those areas, often like at the same time or in real time. It's like you may have some real clarity and confidence about, oh, well, this is the very next thing I need to do. And then, I'm good. And then you're like, okay, I get coaching, I take that next step. And then you go, well, wait a minute. Like it's kind of starts again because you and we've all shared like these journeys, our journeys are unpredictable, right? Like, Mark at 12 years old would have had no way of plotting his way to being here on this podcast today. You could have given
Hmm.
me forever, and I would have never picked that route would include, not getting into the Naval Academy, joining the Army to try to get revenge with the Navy, then spending, 4 years trying to get out of the Army, only to learn to love the Army, to meet my wife, right? To wind up, this winding turns of corporate and going into nonprofit consulting. None of all, I would say none. I can't think. I would just say immediately thinking all my biggest breaks, moments, the real breakthroughs came for me were serendipitous opportunities I had not foreseen, I wouldn't have known to ask for. They only became available because I was doing kind of what we talked about even in my college days. I said, I don't know why this feels right for me, but I'm going to trust it. And so I'm going to step into something that seems a little off path. And I just kept going that way. And I was doing things and, you know, my Army career got accelerated and took a path that was very unusual. And that's what, when I was talking with Mr. Richards, that was the same thing. It's like we started in this one path, a very traditional path around medics and Army medicine. And then both of us immediately are like doing something completely different. And one of the things we both shared is we saw an opportunity and asked for it when everyone else around us was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why do you think you're the person? And many times I said, well, because I'm the person here asking for it. Like, there's no line. There's nobody else
Yeah.
waiting for it. Like, I'm here. Like, like that's why I'm the guy. I'm the guy because I'm the person that saw this as an
Yeah.
opportunity. And
Yeah.
so,
And you were and the other thing is that I love that well, I'm the one who's here because whenever I've heard people say things in my life where it was like, oh, nobody can do that, nobody can achieve that, or that's an impossible thing, or this is nobody does that, or nobody. I'm like, yeah, well, that's exactly the point. So that I happen to be the person who's standing here doing it, and just because there's no frame of reference to speak of, doesn't mean that that there isn't a first.
yeah. And the good news is most people aren't asking to be the first on this. Like, not most of us aren't trying to
Oh
be
yeah,
Richard,
yeah,
right? We're not trying to be Bannister. We're not trying to break, 4-minute miles. And like almost 90% to 99% of everything all of us want. Like, the good news is somebody's done it. Like, very few of my clients are trying to do Elon Musk type stuff, right? Where, right, they're trying to be the first. They're creating industries, they're creating new products, new lines. So it's like, no, I mean, like, mostly what we want is like, we want deeper relationships, more meaningful relationships, better human connections, like better, we want to enjoy our families more. We want to have more rewarding careers, more financial success. Like, that's why I'm like, this is all like that stuff's kind of easy. It's
Mhm.
right in terms
Well, yeah,
of defining it. And like when I say, like, I mean, there's a book on everything we've talked about. There's like hundreds of books, right? So it's like, again, they're like one Google away from like plenty of tactics. So then it's just like, well, why don't we have it? Right? It's like, well, it's either we're just doing things that we think are going to get us the results they are, and we're not. And why do we think that's? Because we just don't have good feedback, right? Like, all right, well, good coaching solves that and says, or where you and I talked, we started a lot with, there's a lot of people know what they want to do and they know how to do it. They're just not doing it.
yeah,
Right. I mean, that's why Weight Watchers works. Right. I mean,
yeah.
right. And Weight Watchers works because plenty of people know how to lose weight, and they're like, okay, I don't really know the exact way. So Weight Watcher says, great. Here's an exact method. Pick one. You can count points, or you can, use the food items. And then they go, well, like what else? And they're like, oh, well, we just put you in a community. What does the community do? The community transforms you into from a person that isn't losing weight to, oh, I'm in this weight loss community. So we start changing the identity, right? The personality, the person. I say, oh, that you just become somebody that's losing weight. You become a Weight Watcher. And Weight Watchers lose weight. That's what we do. It's like, you want to run more? Join a running club. Why? Because
Yeah.
you start identifying as a runner. And like, you can't say, you can't be a non-runner and be in a runner's club. It's like, doesn't work. Your brain will short circuit and melt on you. It's like, yay, you say you're a runner, but you're not running. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, let's circle back and kind of close the loop with comedy. We started with it. The show's Truth Tastes Funny. We started out talking about, some of the more real life, life and death kind of important stuff that people confront in various situations, including the military, and yet how close humor is to truth and how close humor is to both confronting the truth, but also overcoming those things that are getting in our way. Um, what is the what is the thing about humor that you most try to maybe infuse either consciously or subconsciously, overtly, subvertly, that you try to incorporate into your work? The thing about humor or comedy that most manifests itself.
I would say thing that's coming to mind initially, I was surprised. I didn't know this was going to pop into my head, but I'm gonna go with this. Is part of it was just an actual tactic. Because one of the things I know from high performance studies is that everything works better when you're happy. It's just
Yeah.
easier to be more successful if you're happy. You get better ideas, you're smarter, your IQ goes up, it takes less energy, right? It's more novel. In addition to that, people enjoy being around happy people. That was for me. That's I started picking my mentors and the people I worked for based on how happy they were, because I knew that that would rub off on me. And so for me, this idea of comedy, laughter, joy became as much a success secret and an amplifier as well as just a goal. It's like a twofer. It's like a win-win in the most classic sense, that the more joy we're having in life, the more we enjoy life, the more we want to do life. And again, the more for me, like the more courageous you go, like the more into possibility I go. I'm like, well, look, I'm having a good time. We're doing this. I'm having success. Surely I can have that can expand into other areas of my life. And my journey is this idea around comedy, joy, and opportunity and faith and hopefulness has allowed me to escape circumstances several times and expand into areas and to have opportunities that I thought was reserved for other people. And it's not. Like, all things are possible, right? That's classic quantum. Like, there's infinite
Yeah.
possibilities. So if there's infinite possibilities, I'm just going to keep working and tweaking and finding my way into the reality that matches, what I call my dream state. And I try to do the same thing for our clients. And we just do that day to day through that coaching process. What are we trying to do? What do we need to do? What do we think we need to do to make that happen? And are we the type of people that type of thing happens to? Yeah. And then what's our
Yeah.
confidence level, high or low? And we adjust from there, day in, day out. That's for me, that's just how I'm trying to live life. I don't know. I think it's working.
I think so too. Well, I have a feeling we'll have more conversations, and I enjoy doing this. I really do look at this, Mark, as like the first of multiple conversations because we can really dive deeper into
Mhm.
strategies because when you referred to comedy as a strategy, humor as a strategy, um, I don't know that I've ever really thought of it that way, um, consciously, but clearly, humor has always been a piece of it. Um,
But that is that's why we do what we do. I mean, that,
yeah,
like you just said, like, why do people get coaches? Like, what's the purpose of having a coach or mentor? The whole purpose of a coaching session is it's not for me to tell you whether or not things are right or wrong. I'm always saying, like, don't listen for true, like, oh, I believe that or I don't believe that. If you don't listen to this podcast, like going, oh, I agree with him, I don't agree with him. What you're listening for is just what you said. It's I've never thought about that this way, because a new thought introduces new beliefs and new possibilities into your lives, right? And so I I mean that's amazing, man. Any time I can doing things. Why I love listening to podcasts like yours and all podcasts is I'm always looking for like, oh, I've never thought about it like that. What would that mean? And so that's I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was just like such a like coaching like moment right there for me. Like, oh man, I couldn't believe it. I just had a fanboy for just a minute on like,
oh, that's
yes,
great.
yes, that's it, man.
No,
That's what we're doing
that's
here.
awesome. And that's what it's really about, the fanboy experience here on Truth Tastes Funny. Mark Reynolds. So, where can people find you, learn more about you, continue their fascination with your work?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is at mark at reynoldscoaching.com. You can find me also at www.reynoldscoaching.com on my main site there. So, but you know, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm like you said, I'm not hard to find. I don't hide. You can just see me, and hey, if you see me in a comedy club, you can stop by and say hey too. I'm just there like you. I'm just there to enjoy the show and have a good time.
Thanks so much, Mark. I really enjoyed this.
And me too, man. Thanks, Hersh. Thanks for having me. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.